Okay, good morning everyone. Well, it's evening here, but never mind. It took me so long to get my sound working, I've forgotten what I was doing here. But what I'm going to do is start doing a series of tutorials about how to use Unity to, well, I'm going to create business apps with it. I've got lots of reasons for why I want to do that, but so Unity is obviously a game developing platform, but you can actually use it to do business apps as well. And I'm going to go through a series of tutorials to show you how to do that. But to start with, what we're going to do is we're just going to do a basic sort of web API call. Whether you're doing a game or a business app, you might want some. Here is I've just created a new project. This is exactly how it would load. Now, over here, I've created a folder called. If we go to Visual Studio, which has gone funny colours, let's just get that one. Right, okay. So I'm using Visual Studio for Mac, but you could also use the default, was it Mono Develop? You could use that as well, but because I'm usually a Visual Studio user, then this is kind of where I'm familiar. So anyway, so let's go back. So call and get some data from the server, and for now we're just going to display it in the console. Now I've got my server, enchantedchili.com. That's got a very basic PHP web API on it, just called Unity, and all it does is display a message. So we're going to get into how to do that. It's really easy actually. So let's the first thing we're going to do, objects here, we're going to add a button. Where is it? There we go. Did I just add that? Possibly not. Let's go back. Button. There you go. So there's our button. Now notice that what Unity does is whenever you create a UI element, it will automatically create a canvas as well. So you could have actually just created the canvas, then added the button to it, but we didn't. We just created the button and it brought the canvas in by default. Now, so there's our button. And what we're effectively going to do is we're going to give it an on-click event over here. Now, before we get into that, we're going to go to some code. So we're going to our API call script, and we'll actually do the code. I'm not sure why it's okay. There we go. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get rid of these two things because we don't need them for this. Okay. Let's create some space there. Now Unity obviously is a game machine, so it's based around so 60 frames per second or whatever the frame rate is. We don't need that obviously because this is a web call, and well, let's face it, if you can make the web call and return the value in one frame, then that's fantastic, but you probably can't rely on that, so we're not going to. So we're going to implement something called a coroutine. Coroutine. Sorry, there we go. A little bit of a pronunciation problem. Now, what a coroutine is basically Unity's way of getting around that problem. I'd suggest that you read up on coroutines because there's quite a few scenarios in which you're going to use those. Right, so how we do that is we declare a function with an IEnumerator as a return type. One of those, and let's call this before lookup because that's what we're going to do. Okay, now the first thing, sorry, I should have said earlier, because we're going to do a network request, we're going to have to import another namespace in here. So this is going to be a Unity engine, and networking. Where is it? Networking. There we go. There we go. So, alright, so okay. So what we're going to do is we will declare a web request, and that is a Unity web request. There we go, I'll call that WR equals Unity web Unity. Bit of a typing thing going on here. Unity web request dot get. Okay, so that's basically, there's a factory method in there that's giving back Unity requests. We're going to pass in the URL. Okay, so the URL for this test is enchantedchili.com and then unity.php. Okay, so there's our actual request. Okay, now in order to make this work as a coroutine, we're going to use the yield return statement. Okay, did I spell that right? No. Yield return, and we're going to return a send request, send web request, like that. Okay, now we're going to come back to this in a minute, but what we need is we need a public function to actually call this. So let's call this public basic lookup. So you can come up with your own names, obviously. There we go. And then we're going to do start coroutine, okay, and then perform lookup. Okay, so that starts the coroutine and it performs the lookup. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, right, okay, so now we actually want to display a value. What's this? Oh, sorry. Yeah, so times it forward, so we're not going to return anything there. So start, okay, right. So, I'm not going to check for any errors on this. Well, we'll get into that at a later stage. I'm going to show you a little bit about debugging with Visual Studio in a minute. But what we're going to do is we'll say we want to access the download handler and we want to just display the text. Okay, that's all we want to do. Oh, sorry, we want to actually do that with something though. So let's use the debug.log. There we go. Now, download handler dot text. Okay, so that's going to display whatever the response is in our debug window console. Okay, so let's go back to this. Now, when we add the onClick function in here, if we click on here, you see that it's actually expecting an object, which means we can't just, a game object it's expecting, so we can't just attach our script to it because it won't go. So if we try to do that, it's just not going to happen. It's not doing anything. Now, there's lots of options that you could do. You could create an empty game object and call it a script holder or something and then attach a script to it. For me right now, I'm just going to put it on the main camera. Maybe I'm going to put it on the main camera. Let's do it. There we go. Oh, no. So my PC's running, Mac's running really slow. So there we go. So our script is attached to the camera. Let's go back to our button. And then in here, we are going to add the main camera. Once we've got the main camera on there, we can select the functions. And there's our API thing. And there's our basic lookup. So, with all things being here, let's just save the scene, test scene. And when I click on, man, this is slow. Right, okay, when I click on the button here, switch to the console, we should, this is the test response from the server. That's the message that I was returning. Okay, we click on that again, and it comes up again, and so on and so on. That's quite straightforward. Now, okay, so that's going to start that. Now we're also going to click there, which puts a breakpoint just before our debug handler. Okay, so now if we go back to this and click on the button, you see it stops here. And if you go down into the local, which is our web, you get the one to check for response plane, do whatever it is you're going to do. If you get 402 or 500 appropriately, and you've got your method. So that was just a brief bit on how to do that. In the next one we'll go into some more detail. We'll actually return some JSON data and deserialize that into objects and display it on the UI. Okay, so that's it for now.